Hello. Welcome to Let's Talk Immigration, Wednesday, September 2025, right? Um, got a few news things to cover today. First thing I always do, well, the first thing we should always do, I guess, is to go to U.S. visa news to see what's going on over at the State Department because they always have something going on, right? Um, Trying to share my screen. Yeah. Okay. Um, so the annual limit has been reached for the EB categories. This is EB5, EB3, EB1, EB2. Um, what that means is there are so many visas and green cards allotted for employment based categories, just like family preference and diversity, by the fiscal year. And the fiscal year ends September 30th. Well, sometimes they're exhausted before September 30th, which means they used them all. That's good. It's good when they use them all. I wish they'd do that with like family preference categories. They've not done that in modern history because they like that backlog to grow for some reason. But anyway, if you're employment based and you've attended a USCIS interview and they've not sent you your green card, it's probably going to come after October 1st. If you employment based and you've attended an embassy interview and they've asked for your passport, but they haven't printed your visa, this is probably why. And they'll probably print that visa and get that back to you on October 1st or after, a few days after. There are two other things here, news items that I thought I talked about in past shows, but I'm having to remind people all the time. So I'm going to like revisit them. A few days ago on September 6th and August 28th, the State Department changed policy about interview locations. Okay. This is for immigrant visa applicants. This is for non-immigrant visa applicants. So we'll go to the immigrant visa applicants first. We were in a period over the last year where there was some flexibility on where an immigrant visa applicant could be interviewed. That period is over. Now, State Department's requiring immigrant visa applicants to interview at the consular district designated for their place of residence or nationality. That's it. Limited exceptions. That's effective November 1st. So we have like one client in this situation where they might be able to get their embassy scheduled in like a European embassy before November 1st. And they need to do that because if not, if you're Iranian, for example, you're stuck at Abu Dhabi, Ankara, Yerevan, where the backlog is 8 months to 2 years waiting for an interview. No, there's no backlogs at European interviews. European embassies generally do not have backlogs for immigrant visa applicants. So there's some surprises with the designated post. Somalia, you can only go to Nairobi. They don't let them go to Djibouti no more or anywhere else. Russians can go to Warsaw, Almaty, or Tashkent. That cuts off some of the options that Russians were using. Afghanistan, just Islamabad. That's just cruel. If you can get out of Afghanistan right now, the policy before is if you could get out of Afghanistan, you could be interviewed at any United States embassy in the world. And now, just Islamabad. The exception would be special immigrant visas. So this is going to make it more difficult to immigrate to the U.S., particularly for people who are located in a country that does not have a U.S. embassy. So let's go back to non-immigrant visas. Um, the non-immigrant visa was September 6th. This affects a lot of people that are in situations that I don't usually represent. A lot of Indians will go back to India and stamp their renewals for their non-immigrant visa categories. Same with a lot of visa applicants from China. And they no longer have, sometimes they would go to just any embassy. The policy before, and this has been the policy since post-COVID, was that you could apply for a non-immigrant visa at any U.S. embassy you wanted. Now, part of Trump's policy to destroy the American economy by making it less possible for tourists to be able to visit the U.S. and business people to come here and do business, what they've decided to do is make it extremely restrictive and difficult to get to the U.S. This is going to impact the World Cup. Like, World Cup attendance is going to be greatly impacted by this. So there are new designated locations for non-immigrant visa processing, and it's just like there's just one embassy. So remember when I said Iranians can go to Abu Dhabi, Yerevan, or Ankara? For non-immigrant visas, they can just go to Dubai. Now, of course, let's wake up. There's a travel ban in effect for Iran and 18 other countries. And so there's very few situations where an Iranian visa applicant, for example, would be eligible for a non-immigrant visa anyway. But this is just a frustrating list. Russians can go to Astana and Warsaw only. Somalia only Nairobi. So Afghanistan only Islamabad. So it's going to make it more difficult for applicants for non-immigrant visas to schedule a visa interview for the U.S. It's going to mean that it's going to be more difficult for students to come study in the U.S. Pretty crazy. Okay, so that concludes our time with the U.S. visa news. Let's go to Visa Bulletin, because since I saw you last Wednesday, there has been a development with the Visa Bulletin. I know a lot of you F2As have been very upset because in September, F2A was at September 2022, 23, 24, 25, 3 years behind. Well, for October 2025, we have F2A skipping forward 18 months to February 1st, 2024. So what's this mean? A lot of F2A, this is the spouses and minor children of green card holders, currently their petitions have priority dates current in the Visa Bulletin now. And so at this time, they would normally have those petitions sent to the State Department and a case created, and then they could complete the DS-260 and attend the interview, and everything would be great. But there's a problem. USCIS has ignored I-130s for F2As because they've taken for granted the fact that the Visa Bulletin was 3 years behind. So most of the people who have a priority date of February 1st of 2024 or before, who have not been scheduled for interview yet, most of them, their petitions are still pending. They don't have approved I-130s. There's a solution. Call me. Call any immigration attorney who does mandamus lawsuits. We can file a mandamus lawsuit against USCIS for the delayed I-130 adjudication. I know a lot of people think of mandamus lawsuits for a different part of the process, like after the interview when it's stuck in administrative processing. Well, that works too, but this works exceptionally well. Lawsuits against USCIS are unique in that we have to file them typically where the petitioner lives or where the processing center is. And neither one of those are in DC because the USCIS is not based in DC. And where USCIS is based, the federal courts don't like us there unless the petitioner is based there. So talk to us if your F2A petition has been not been approved yet, but your number's current in the visa bulletin, because you probably need to do a mandamus lawsuit now. Okay. I would talk to you about statistics, but the visa statistics for June still have not come out. We're still looking at May's. I don't know why that is. Okay. Yasemin has a question here. Could you explain about lottery winners, especially the Thine versus Trump case, and minorities? Okay. Yasemin, when you're talking about Thine versus Trump, that's not just impacts for lottery winners. That's about the travel ban. Okay. It's a travel ban case for lottery winners who were impacted by the travel ban. Travel ban impacts other visa categories besides the lottery winners. If you're a DV 2025 selectee, a lottery winner, you basically have 13 days to be issued a visa. Or if you're in the United States, you have 13 days to be issued a green card, because on October 1st, your journey is no longer available. Okay. And also judges, as according to the DC Circuit in the Good Luck case, judges do not have the capacity to reserve visas or green cards beyond the end of the fiscal year. So I know what's going to happen in October. It happens every October. I get 1,000 phone calls, sometimes more, messages from people who should have hired me in May or June of this year, and they wait until it's too late. And honestly, I've got like an auto reply for that. I'm just like, I'm sorry, DV, the fiscal year is over and there's nothing we can do about it. At this point, if you're a DV selecting and you've not been issued a visa yet, you probably need to be hoping for a miracle. If you're a DV selectee and you're part of one of these countries impacted by the travel ban, even if you are issued a visa, you can't enter the U.S. on that visa unless you are found eligible for an exception. Now, there are two kinds of exceptions that are most people think they might be eligible for. One is a national interest exception. I don't know of a single visa applicant who's got a national interest exception. I don't think that they're going to be using that many, that they're going to be finding many people eligible for that exception. The other option is an exception for religious or ethnic minority. This is an exception that does not make a lot of sense. It's just for Iranians, and if you can demonstrate to the consular officer that you're a member of a minority, sometimes they can arbitrarily give you a exception. And we are seeing some of those. Not everybody's getting them, and some are. I would like to see the supreme leader of Iran apply for a visa because he's a Zeri, so maybe he would qualify. It's not logical. It doesn't make any sense. So a lot of the consults I'm doing right now about the minority exception, people are like trying to have me explain it through a lens of like, hey, what's the logic behind this? There is no logic. It's crazy. Okay. Yasmin's a 2026 winner. Okay. So the travel ban's still in effect for 2026. Okay. I think you should assume that the travel ban is going to be in effect for the rest of Trump's presidency, 3.5 years. It's possible that we can do some miracle through litigation, but I don't want anybody to think that that's promised. Okay. We have 5 lawsuits pending, soon to be 6, challenging the travel ban. Charles Cuck is getting ready to file one with the Impact Group for fiancés. And then I think he's going to do another one for students. That's what I heard. Like first it was the Jeff Joseph with the PAL Group, and now I heard Charles Cuck is doing it with Impact. So there are going to be legal challenges to the travel ban, but I don't think that you should count on those. Now, there's one other route. If you don't qualify for an exception, there's one other route that one other kind of exception that I forgot to mention, and that is dual nationals are not subject to the travel ban if the second passport is from a country that's not a travel ban country. So if you could obtain a second passport either through your family or through investment, now's the time to do that. I mean, it's always the time to do that because it improves your mobility, and mobility is important. But it could make you eligible under an exception of the travel ban. Okay, Ali says, I'm the winner of DV 2025. I'm considered a minority. No matter how many emails I send to the embassy, they do not answer them. Why do you think? And what should I do? Well, Ali, first of all, let's back up. They do not consider whether or not you are eligible for an exception if you are in administrative processing, national security vetting, administrative processing. So like if they gave you a DS 5535, that means the consular officer has reached out to people in the US, probably via email, and requested a security advisory opinion, and they cannot determine your eligibility for an exception until that comes back. So that could be what's going on. I know with the Thine versus Trump lawsuit, we're in a unique situation because the judge ordered the government to accelerate the adjudication of the national security vetting for those plaintiffs. So, litigation works. A lot of people like to wait on the sidelines and see what happens to other people first. But I can show you. Let me show you what happened in Thine versus Trump here. We got a declaration from a Stuart Wilson. Are y'all ready to see a Stuart Wilson declaration? I bet you are. This was filed 2 days ago. It was filed on Monday in the Thine versus Trump lawsuit, and 24 plaintiffs have been issued diversity visas so far in that case. And this talks about the progress they're making with the remaining plaintiffs. There was also a subset of plaintiffs that did not get relief in that case. Also, some of the plaintiffs that are issued visas in this case, those visas are still subject to proclamation, so they're not going to be able to enter the U.S. So that's why I'm not calling the Thine versus Trump lawsuit a success, because it's only been a success for a small number of the plaintiffs in that case. There's a possibility that Trump canceled the ban or changed the ban within 6 months before those issued visas expire, and then all of a sudden it becomes a bigger success. But I just don't think that's likely, and I don't think anybody should count on it. Okay. Let me see what was on my agenda to talk about today. I don't have visa statistics. Let me look one more time. I'm really mad that I don't have visa statistics. I've been wanting visa statistics. I've been wanting to show how Trump is limiting travel and specifically immigration to the U.S., and it's hard to do without statistics. May is the last statistics I got. So that's not helpful. Nothing to talk about there. Okay. So we got another question here. What documents do you think are sufficient to prove minority status to the embassy? I will never, as an attorney, use the word sufficient because I don't want to go up against the guardrail. I don't want to take chances. I don't want to get as close as I can to barely getting something done. I want to satisfy the decision maker with an abundance of evidence to where there's no question. But in this situation, you're talking about minority status. You probably don't have that much. Most people don't carry around a lot of evidence about their minority status. What I would say is present everything that you have. So here's some examples. Your birth certificate or your parents' birth certificate show that sometimes they show some minority information on those. Photos of you at a cultural gathering that is appropriate for your religious or ethnic minority. Any kind of publication that referenced you and your role in a minority. You know, I don't know that much about Iran to know if there's newspapers there. Surely there's newspapers. There's a newspaper clipping or something that shows that you or your parents were a minority, that would be helpful. If you're speaking a different language, like you're Azeri Turk, you probably have more evidence like that. Maybe just go through all the papers in your desk. Ask your parents, how can I prove that I'm this minority? And maybe they'll have some ideas. They have not given a list. So also, the consular officer does not have to rely on your documents to make their decision. That's really clear in the cable. So a lot of it has to do with your credibility, whether the consular officer believes you. Okay. Which brings me to something that's very important. I don't want any of my clients or anybody listening to me going in and trying to pretend they are a member of a religious or ethnic minority. That could end very badly. You don't want to do that. Okay. So yeah, that's what we just talked about. How to prove. It's very difficult to prove. I don't know. I can't even believe we're here. It's a crazy exception. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up today. As some of you all know, I'm running for Congress, and I've got an exciting meeting tonight with the Young Dem Club of San Diego, and I'm excited to see some young Democrats. So that's what I'm going to go do tonight. But I also have maybe 100 emails to answer before I leave in an hour. So until next Wednesday, which it looks like I'm free on the 24th, have a good week and take care of yourself.